Hogstye.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Hogsty. It is I, your host, Alex. We have coming from the lovely city of Houston, Steve, of course. From the city of hate, cheesesteaks, and suffering, Dave, in Philadelphia.
You stole my line. City of Hate. I copyrighted that.
I added cheesesteaks and suffering, so I'm copyrighting that.
Choking, it's a Philly thing.
And of course, I am coming to you from Washington, D.C., the home of the only undefeated pro football team in America right now, the D.C. Defenders. So we have that going for us. Not much else in D.C., just that.
There's not a lot going on,
There's not
going on in D.C.
Nope.
D.C.
Nothing at all.
Wreck.
I was at the Defenders meetup bar crawl thing, which was at a brew pub outside of Nats Park over the weekend, and all that crazy stuff broke on Saturday at 9:00 right when I was there. I shouted, "Hey, Dan Snyder, sell it," and started a whole 5-minute chant of F Dan Snyder. And they didn't say F, of course. They said the full chant.
The full Monty? Was this like more than 5 people who were in this
probably
bar?
about 25 people there. There were also people there for March Madness. It was a full bar. So
Okay.
I think March Madness people also joined the chant
because why not? Yeah.
City unity is the important thing here.
Let's remove our Washington Homer helmet here. Mine's kind of non-existent, but is there any owner in football, in the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NFL who we can honestly say it's not objective, honestly say was a worse owner than Dan Snyder?
Worse owner, yes. Worse human being might be dicey.
Who do you think is a worse owner?
I mean, if you're just going by statistics in football,
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that.
So we're talking off the field, which is worst human being category.
Well, just worst owner. I mean, because you can have a bad owner and win a little bit here and there.
Sure.
Just worst owner, whatever that means to you.
I mean, who's the guy who owns the Knicks? He's really bad, right? Like
James Dolan.
Dolan. He's a big old shitbag, right?
Yes,
that's kind of accepted. He kicks people out of games and things like that.
It's funny because I was just having this conversation the other day at work, and I said, I got to make a tier system out of this because I got to take all of the actual true, real vile human beings of owners, ones who committed sexual assault issues or were racist and so forth. They're over here. And then I start a whole new list, and that list is Dan Snyder without a doubt.
Because you're mentioning a couple like Marge Schott.
Sure.
With the Cincinnati Reds was talking about slaves and all kinds of awful things. She was terrible. She got run out of Major League Baseball.
Wait,
and you had
was
Richardson in Carolina,
or was that
right?
somebody else?
No, that's Marge Schott.
Okay.
And then there's Donald Sterling was always a horrible human being.
Right.
Frank McCourt with the Dodgers wasn't a racist or anything, but he was just a horrible, horrible person. Just put the team into bankruptcy. Was hiring Russian shamans and all kinds of ridiculous things. And so he's awful.
I mean, if we're going through all time, George Preston Marshall's also the mean there, right?
I'm talking about in our lifetimes.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, none of us were alive when Marshall owned the team.
No. I'm talking about stuff we might have lived through. And James Dolan, the only one who's active right now, for my money, who's actively owning that gives Dan Snyder a run for his money is probably Dolan. Dolan's a horrible, horrible person too.
Yeah, he's just as petty.
Yeah.
It's not a big list of
and Dolan has done a lot of the same things that Snyder's done.
Right. When you go back in history, most of the early owners were probably horrible people. So,
I'd say most billionaires, as a general rule, are probably horrible people.
Right, but when you're going back in time, there weren't billionaires yet. They were just normal rich guys.
Yeah. So
there's still that elite, though.
Yes.
So the question, 1 and 2 in some order would be Dolan and Snyder. And so then the question is, on the list, who's worse? Because Dolan has had some of the same sexual misconduct stuff. He's done all kinds of stuff to screw up the team. He hired Isaiah Thomas, who had a bunch of sexual, allegations of his own. He's threw Charles Oakley out of the arena for no
Well,
reason.
I guess
That's a
to be
big one.
fair, I guess Snyder would be number 2 because at least we have a couple division titles under him. We had what 4 playoff appearances under him. We've had some moments of competency
Mm.
kind of in the front office at some points. So I guess really you have to be fair and put, I guess, Snyder number 2 behind
Because
Dolan.
Dolan has been a total train wreck
Oh,
for a
absolutely.
generation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the heart. I don't know what is his like. If you're just gonna look even at on field as a factor, what would be his like record? Do you know offhand? Like, is he a
No, but
300 or 400 type guy too?
I mean, the Knicks have sucked forever. No,
Yeah,
I'd have to look it up and figure it out, but the Knicks have really sucked forever. I
right.
mean, the last time the Knicks were good was when Patrick Ewing was there
Well,
as a
didn't they
player.
have? They had like a couple of years where they were getting good and then they fell apart again. But was that before him?
Here, we're gonna look up Pro Basketball
Yeah,
Reference.
I just don't know. Like, it's harder to find owner records on those.
No, it is. You kind of have to pretend you're Steve, and you have
Right.
to go back and do math and figure things out.
Right. You have to, yeah. Even with pro basketball and pro football reference, there are little tricks you can do. It's really just digging through and finding the start point, the end point.
Okay,
But
so James Dolan, according to Wikipedia, let's see.
yeah, Steve is thinking hard here.
Well, I'm trying to read Wikipedia with having
Well, you're doing
the
that. I'm
having the
gonna put,
Skype big thing in the middle of the screen.
yeah. I mean, do we count the former owner of the Panthers who just died in that list, or is that?
No, I mean, well, you can, sure, absolutely, but the second part of what I was saying was who's the worst like active owner now? But yeah, Jerry Richardson would count. He was in our lifetime. He was a
Yeah.
dirtbag too.
Yeah. And I know
He
he
was kind
just
of a more
died.
limited dirtbag though. Really, I think I would maybe put him behind Snyder.
Well, it's the classic question of which is worse, sexism or racism, you know.
Yeah, but true, both are awful. But
Right.
Richardson didn't have the number of allegations that Snyder's had.
No. Dan's got a good long laundry list, and
Yeah, but wasn't Richardson actually
he was caught.
he was caught in an issue, right? I forget what that
Yes,
was.
he
though.
was more or less caught red-handed, which is why he sold without
Okay,
objection.
Right.
So Dolan is a really good comp because he bought he's run the Knicks since 1999 according to CBS.
Oh,
Sports.
so exact same timeline.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
And so then if we go to Pro Basketball Reference, see if we can pull this really fast.
Yeah, Steve's gonna do this. Another. I'm trying to think who are some other really, really crummy people off the. I mean, Kraft.
Well, I mean, yeah, they
with the
keep in
hand
there
job
probably the
thing
Marlins. Whoever the owner of the Marlins was. for
He
so
was
long.
awful too. He's
Yeah.
up there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the guy before.
Yes.
What's his
Free
face?
Jeter guy. Yeah.
Yeah, pre-Jeter. You're right.
Yeah.
That
I
guy
mean,
was a
the team
dirtbag, too.
still's terrible.
And I'm
but-
horrible with names with these owners. So
See,
it's,
that guy wasn't a dirtbag of a human. He was just a horrible owner.
Yes.
You know, like the special thing about Dolan and Snyder, they're terrible owners and they're terrible people both.
Well, let's also consider the guy who owns the Browns right now. He's a pretty shitty person. You know, he was.
He is. He's up there too.
He was in a lot of legal trouble for some shady
He got
business
within
there.
a gnat hair of being indicted on federal like racketeering charges.
Right, and then let's top that off with, hey, let me just bring in Deshaun Watson here because
and a fully guaranteed contract.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, he's
so
up there.
Since 1999,
Mm-hmm.
so the Knicks have had 8 playoff appearances since 1999. But
I mean, that's
remember,
pretty good compared to the.
but it's
Yeah.
easier. There are more playoff teams in basketball than in
true.
football. And then they have had a first place finish, which a winning percentage of 659. So that's probably better than anything Washington's ever had.
Oh, like that's one season.
That's one season.
Okay, yeah, that's way better than anything Washington's done. Yes.
Yeah. And they've had another season 610
Mhm.
and a bunch over 500. But
So they're an average-ish team, just not
no,
successful.
they still suck. I mean, remember, basketball is easy to get in the playoffs. And
yeah,
they also
yeah.
haven't been in the playoff. They've only had one playoff appearance since 2013 too. So
Mm.
it's, I don't know. We'd have to do some. I'm not willing to do the math here live on the air, but it's just a thought. But so I think we've all agreed that those two are the leading contenders.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
currently
they're neck to neck.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably there's probably some owners who are like very in the shadows that are just awful human beings that we don't even know about. The horrible, we're talking about what?
Oh, there's
120
Shades of Grey
billionaires
dudes out there we just don't know about. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
We are talking about there's about 120 pro sports teams in the United States, so 120 billionaires. At least I'm going to be conservative. 10 have hunted people for sport. That's just my guess.
Straight out of that movie.
Yeah. Oh
what was
yeah.
the movie?
Yeah.
That movie was a good movie. What was the name of that movie?
Well, it's based off of a Most Dangerous Game, but so there's like 20 versions of it.
But it was kind of there actually were some not so subtle but cool literary references in that movie that you had to kind of know literature to pick up on. It was actually pretty smartly done.
I mean, is that like a subtle literature thing to know? Didn't everyone have to read Most Dangerous Game at some point?
Well, it wasn't that. It wasn't the Most Dangerous Game. It might have been, but they had some other references in there, like classic literature and stuff.
Gotcha. But
I would have been lost.
Well, you might not have picked up on the literary reference. You would have been lost in the movie. I can't remember what the name of it is.
And I think I know the one you're talking about, but yeah.
Like 3 or 4 years ago or something, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and they keep remaking that concept. It's not a new
concept. Yeah, that's not new.
Let's talk about some other stuff that's going on with ownership. I meant we kind of touched on it real briefly. There was some scuttlebutt Saturday night. Some people started leaking that the team had officially been sold to Josh Harris for $6 billion. It was a done deal, blah, 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 blah.
Our in-house text message stuff blew up there for a while.
Yes. I got very excited. I don't know about you guys. I was not.
Never believed.
Steve was pessimistic, as usual.
Well, I turned out to be right.
I mean, you had a page called the Command Post with like 600 followers, and he pays for his blue check mark. Still swearing up and down that he has the information saying he sold, but he's the only one.
What are you talking about?
One of the people who reported it.
Yes, on Twitter.
Just some dude on Twitter.
Some handle called Command Post.
Well, Steve, you know how they made it. Well, you don't know. So now on Twitter, to be an official thing, you just pay for it.
Yes. Maybe the hog style to get.
No, we're not. I'm not paying $8 a month for that. I'm not a loser.
Joking. I don't even like Twitter. I don't even want Twitter. Lucky I'm doing it at all.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
No, that I mean, obviously that's some moron who's trying to get attention. They don't know what they're talking about.
But there were a plethora of morons trying to get attention.
Here's what I think happened. So the news was that, like Alex said, the leak was that a new owner was going to be announced in very soon in the coming days.
Yeah.
And that clearly didn't happen. It's Wednesday night. That hasn't happened. And my study for the show here indicated to me that now there's more pessimism, that it's Rick Snyder, I believe, said in one of his videos I watched, said it may be, the May owners meeting, April, not the one coming up here in a few days. What I originally thought probably happened is that an agreement in principle was reached, so that they, so they had like a letter of intent or something signed, and then it would take a while for a true purchase and sale, like stock purchase agreement to be drafted. I thought that's probably what they were doing, but now looking back on it with the benefit of 5 or 6 days, it appears that it was just totally bogus.
Yeah, probably bogus. We did get some more trustworthy news about the whole ownership thing. The one that came out earlier, so I'll do this chronologically. One of your favorite athletes of all time, Steve, Magic Johnson, has joined the Josh Harris bid for the Washington Commanders. Fascinating. Now, you probably know this all more than I do. Magic Johnson, very good post-playing career financially. Like, he's made a lot of smart investments over his lifetime. Magic Johnson Theaters being a big one that everyone would know.
Theater is actually not one that was successful. Some other stuff. Yeah, really? I know a lot about Magic Johnson. I mean, they're gone now, basically.
Well, yeah, during the pandemic, I know, like, the last couple around here closed. Finally.
Yeah, they were almost gone before that happened, too. So, so Magic Johnson, yes, is my favorite basketball player of all time.
Right.
For sure. and yes, he's had a lot of real estate developments, he's had a very successful career to the point where when he was asked to be the president of the Lakers, he basically agreed to do it on a part-time basis, which turned out didn't go well.
No.
And now Magic Johnson
was he a part owner too?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not anymore. But he is a part owner. He's a minority shareholder in the Dodgers.
Okay.
Now he's got a very small piece of the Dodgers. Like,
yeah, I heard it was like 50 million or something like that.
Yeah, and the Dodgers sold for to a little over 2 million when you throw the stadium in. And so he's got a microscopically small piece of the Dodgers. He's not going to have any more than that with Washington, either. So people need to understand something. Minority partners really have no say in anything. Their only influence comes and they can pick up the phone and call the owner and talk about it. That's all they do. So the idea of having Magic Johnson or this Mitchell Rales guy isn't going to amount to hill of beans ultimately. But what Magic did in LA with the Dodgers, I mentioned Frank McCourt earlier. Frank McCourt was the former owner of the Dodgers who was a train wreck and who had all kinds of bad. I'll spare you all the details. But the fans of the Dodgers in LA, of which I was one from afar, were really, really down, like as down on McCourt as we are on Snyder.
Sure.
And Magic Johnson showed up and was the smiling, $1 million smile face during the ownership acquisition process. And he showed up for some games and stuff afterwards for a while. So he kind of became the face that people trusted to say, basically, it's a new sheriff in town. Look, Mr. Hollywood, who was a hero. He might not be a hero in Washington, but he's a hero in LA.
Oh, absolutely.
So he really helped sell the new ownership team to the Dodger fans, although he really has exactly zero say in the Dodgers and never has. And that's probably what would happen here.
We've seen this now with multiple sports franchise sales. I mean, we were talking about Miami earlier. Derek Jeter. His share
Derek
of the
Jeter is different. Derek Jeter is the principal owner somehow.
Is he? I thought he was still a minority owner.
No, he's the designated principal owner. He doesn't have a huge piece, and they waived all kinds of financing rules for him.
Gotcha.
But he actually, that Derek Jeter is not. I know what you're saying, but Derek Jeter isn't a good example of it.
Okay, well, you can look at Brooklyn though with what was it when Jay-Z was not a principal owner.
Correct.
Yeah, but this idea of bringing in celebrities or sports stars in a lot of these cases to add some legitimacy to these purchases. I mean, it's becoming more and more normal now, it feels like. And, I don't think there's any athlete other than maybe Michael Jordan who could even venture to really buy a full team themselves.
I mean, even Jordan would have trouble, as a solo. He could be the principal. He could be the lead owner in a group, but Jordan doesn't have the money to buy even selling the Charlotte.
Which is what he's doing right now. And there was a rumor that he was doing it to be a minority owner.
What's that team going to be worth? $1 billion, $2 billion, and maybe at most.
Maybe.
It'd be enough to get him to be the lead of a group.
Right. But not for a team like the Redskins or Commanders, which is 6 or whatever it is.
Probably. I mean, he could take that money. It would be the 30% down that he would need to put for his equity injection. I mean, again, it would get him enough to get him in the door as long as he could put a bunch of people around him who had money and he could get financing from somewhere. I mean, he could pull it off.
Yeah. And someone like him probably knows those people.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, he didn't pay cash for the Charlotte Hornets,
No. But I do find it interesting that we're still seeing people line up like this. The other name that just came out today, of course, the Canadian real estate mogul Steve Apostolopoulos. Which an Apostolopolis, if you don't know, is a city made of pasta. That's what Apostolopolis is.
I don't know a lot about him. I don't know if you guys do. I don't have a strong
opinion
opinion.
I don't have my finger on the Canadian real estate market.
The only thing I know about him is he's a private equity guy.
Yeah,
I do know that, and it seems like all these private equity guys are just rolling in dough. Yep. But he's private equity from Toronto. I mean, if you're looking for a guy who's a fan of the team, he's probably not it.
No, he's the guy that you worry is going to move the team to Toronto. Is who he is.
That's right. or
Yeah,
anywhere else, because he has no loyalty to DC necessarily. So yeah,
right.
that would be what I would worry about with him.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I would worry about that too. It seems surprising that his name came out at this point. My gut is, you know how we've been hearing that there have been guys who didn't want their name coming out? He's one of those guys. Is
Yeah.
my guess.
Yeah.
So,
So I wrote a column Monday, which
all
I
right,
hope you guys read. Silence.
Dave, anything?
Do you guys not care? Does nobody care? Read my columns. It was my good riddance column.
Oh,
to
I
Dan
did read your
Snyder.
Good Riddance
no,
column.
I
Yes.
wanted to. I didn't. I didn't have a chance to get to it. I barely had time to get my article done yesterday.
No, I read your
I read
your
yours,
Good Riddance
Dave.
column,
I
Steve.
read your
did.
column.
I pinky swear I did. Pinky
Okay.
swear
Trust me, I wanted to get back to it. I actually just forgot about it because I actually wanted to read that article. I really did.
Well, you should read my column. You should read it.
Well,
and it was my goodbye to Dan Snyder's. It turns out it was premature, unfortunately.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, real question. You are from Philly. Are you sure you can read?
I was tempted to read that. I was tempted to read that column on the air for this show, but it would have taken too long.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It's not that long by my standards, but
and compared to what I would have written, there's way less profanity. So
see, the original title, the title was Good Riddance, and the original title I had was Good Riddance A-hole. That was, and I deleted the A-hole part because I thought that's a bit over the top.
Sure.
Actually, you probably would have gotten more readers and more subscribers on the Hogstie if you left it in there.
Maybe, but it's not really my thing. My
Right.
No. Steve is not a profanity guy.
No, I'm not. But it was put in there. I highly recommend everybody read it because I've written a bunch of things about Snyder. Some of it's been very sarcastic, but this was like from the heart saying, you really are a horrible person. And
yes,
you're a miserable human being and you're a terrible businessman and it was me just like saying all the things. So I hope you read
the thing about
and please
Dan
credential us
Snyder.
for training camp.
Yes. Here's the thing about Dan Snyder. And I've said this on social media, and I'll say it here. It's not just that I want you to go away. If there were a way that he could be forced out and somehow lose all the money that he's given, and the Lady S sinks, and his wife leaves him, and somebody just gives him a nice little kick in the balls too, then I'm happy.
And you see him working
and then he needs to go to jail because they found he's been doing some insider trading. Now I'm happy.
I was gonna say you had to see him working in the Chevy Chase Maryland subway, but
Well, no, because he's not getting out on parole. He's going to jail for what I want him to go to jail
prison.
for.
Yeah, I'd rather see that. I'd rather see that.
Than him getting $5-6 billion. Yes.
I gotta say it is kind of weird that the guy's been floating around on a boat in the Mediterranean for months and on end. I did not realize that he has not been back in the United States essentially at all for months.
Right.
I did not know that.
Well, we've learned that
he came
emptied out
back
his
like
office
2
a few
weeks
months
ago,
ago.
right?
I don't. I was about to say something, which I won't.
No.
But I think he was back once. But point is, other than that, he's basically been totally MIA, and I did not realize that.
Yeah. Well, they've kept it under wraps until it got leaked. What was that? 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, about it. So the rumor, by the way, what Alex is talking about, if you haven't heard, is that we now know that Dan and Tanya have cleaned out the owner's office in Ashburn at Redskins Park, and it was back in December. And Mike Florio, who's another idiot, broke that as if that was news, and it turns out it wasn't really news. It just hadn't been publicized.
Right. There's no desk. It's just a weird little like folding chair, and that's it. It's empty.
Just a folding chair.
Yeah, it's not even a spinning chair. Like,
you think he left his putter?
No, I think the putter was taken with him. For memories.
Anybody ever? I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the conversation which Dan and Tanya are talking about his adventures with hookers. Wouldn't that have been a wonderful thing? To see?
I'm sure he did takes out his card and goes, as soon as she asks the question, here, why don't you go buy yourself something?
Here's the black card.
Yeah, just go, have fun.
And then she's like, well, damn, it bounced last time. With that terrible Southern accent of her. Just grating. Yeah.
Anyway, all that to say, please read the column because it was one of my better ones.
It is a very heartfelt,
You really, really suck, Dan. It was like,
yeah,
this is from me, from the heart. In all honesty, no sarcasm.
right.
You suck.
You're an awful human being and a terrible human being.
Yes, both of
Yes.
those.
And see me, I'm trying to live a little cleaner life going forward and not be
Well,
as
I have another
angry
one
at
for you then.
people.
Okay, I have another one for you. So we said what we're going to say about Danny. The news is the pending sale turns out wasn't, and we're going to still continue to wait, and who knows what happened.
Right.
Right.
And
What
then
does
Apostolopoulos. That's the other news.
what does a new owner need to do to build up credibility in the eyes of the fan base? Let's ask that.
Well, before we get to that, real quick, because I know we've had kind of, I'm sure it's probably you on the Hogside account today, going back and forth. We were talking about with Josh Harris, someone
Wasn't
talking
me.
about.
It
No,
wasn't
that's
me
probably
at
No,
all.
I'm talking about Alex.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
probably.
Yeah, so and people talk, is this one individual coming out and say, well, why is everyone so hung up on Josh Harris? He's apparently a Bezos guy, because I came out of the comments, I got little confidence in Bezos, and I'm more with Josh Harris, and he points out, well, what he's done for the Sixers and the New Jersey
Yeah, I
Devils.
saw
He
that
has,
guy too. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
but see, he said he's talking about the Devils. Well, it took 10 years to build anything. Well, the NHL is a much different dynamic in how you build a roster, the
Mhm.
salary cap, how it's worked out, and so forth. And right now, what he's developed now with the staff that's in place, they have one of the bright young teams in the league, probably just missing a goaltender, really,
Mhm.
to be in
Which
the
is not easy to
playoffs and
find in the
championship
NHL.
runs for like the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So but see with hockey, it's a really weird sport in terms of, you can have the top pick every year, and that player rarely ever hits half the time. It's what you do deeper in the drafts, and that's what the Devils have done very, very well.
Right.
So obviously that's a sign of him putting together a staff that's competent enough to build a team.
Right. Building a sports franchise. And Steve, look, you do IJB. I know you are obsessive about some of this stuff and you probably are very knowledgeable. Building each different type of sports team is very different, right? Like
Yes.
baseball and hockey, it's all about developing through the minor leagues. Like you can go out and sign free agents in hockey, but the good guys are never available because they're going to stay on their teams or they'll get traded, as needed by the teams that are tanking. Baseball is all about the sabermetrics now, which I think ruined it, from at least in my opinion. It's not as fun as it used to be. NBA is just about finding two superstars and getting them to play together and not like
It's really
murder each
3
other.
now.
Yeah,
but
really
yes.
3.
Well, okay, yes, it's two and another guy. But then it's ego management. And football, you can build a team quickly if you find a quarterback. We all know that.
So, but listen, this is not what the owner does, okay?
No.
So the owner's real job, what you would want in an owner, is someone who establishes a culture of professionalism,
Sure,
and a culture of winning. You
Yes.
know, and then what he does, or she, is hire somebody to run the football operations
Right.
that is the best, and let them do it. And they typically stay out of the way. The dirty little secret here is a lot of these owners don't really care about, they want to win, but that's not their principal focus. Most of these owners, from my experience, it's really more about money than anything else.
Right.
Mhm.
And they would rather win than not win. But it's like rare exception, like the guy in Miami with the Miami Marlins we were talking about before the show. Was that before the show? Anyway, whatever.
That was
Whenever
before the show.
Okay.
A little bit, I think.
We were talking about some of the bad owners, and the owner of Miami Marlins utterly do not care. There's exceptions, but what you really want is an owner who will establish a professional winning culture and hire a guy to run team ops who is the best you can find and let him do it. That's what you want.
I mean, I do think that there is aspects of establishing a winning culture in that, and like I'm going to use the Baltimore Ravens as an example. The owner of the Ravens has always said our identity is going to be, we're a good defensive team. We are a power run kind of team, like physical. That's the identity he's always wanted. So all his
that's
coaches,
establishing a culture, is what
right?
he's
All his
doing.
coaches and GMs fit that mold.
And most importantly, he had Ozzie Newsome.
Well,
Yep.
yes, and that was finding the right guy to keep doing that. I do want the new owner to say, "Hey, this is what I envision, and I think this GM matches my vision, and go forth." Yeah, I'm with you
Right.
there, and do that in the front office as well with the
Absolutely, with the business side.
Yeah,
The business side is easier though. I mean, because it's more traditional. You know, you hire some lawyers, you hire people like me to come in here and do a bunch of agreements and stuff, because the NFL will sell itself. You know, if you just
Sure,
don't
but
act like Dan Snyder, the NFL will almost literally sell itself.
we also have seen with this team, there's a lot of
You can screw it up. I mean, don't get me wrong,
there's
but
a
I
lot
mean,
of
if you
stuff that
just,
needs to be fixed there
but if
too.
you act like a reasonable person and a reasonable business person, it will almost run itself.
Right.
And that's pretty much exactly what Josh Harris does. I don't think Bezos is even capable of that, to be honest with you. And here in Philadelphia, as a Sixers fan, his first couple of years, the Sixers they were in the middle of a tank to get them, and that's what the NBA does anymore. They tank to get the players that they need. And the biggest complaint he refused to pay the luxury tax to build a championship team. He refused to pay Jimmy Butler after after he acquired him, and he let him walk because he had Ben Simmons. Well, in hindsight, you should let Ben Simmons go and kept Jimmy Butler. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
But that was all on Elton Brand. Elton Brand was our general manager. That's who ran the show. And he allowed Elton Brand to make that decision. And he was very clear. I'm not paying the luxury tax. And people want to core, and he did that this past year when he traded Thibault and Korkmaz. I mean, they were limited offensive players. Thibault was a real good defensive player, yes, but they weren't key cogs to this team to what they're doing right now.
Well,
so now you're looking at the NFL. The NFL, there's no such thing as a luxury tax. You have a hard cap, you can't go over it. And what was mentioned on that thread is you have a floor. You have to pay a certain amount. And you have to pay in between there somewhere. Now, my question is, I was trying to think and remember, is there's only a max limit you can roll into the following year, correct, Steve?
Yeah, you're not going to roll. Yeah, there's some formula. I'd have to look it up.
Right.
It's the every 4 years rule that you have to hit. I think, what is it, 80-something% of your salary cap?
They've not been good about enforcing all of that. But you're not going to roll $50 million. No.
Right.
So
you can't pull that off.
So there's no benefit on just trying to hold your cap money. There's no benefit to the owner in that. So
no.
And he's already proven in Philadelphia when he extended Harden. We traded for Harden, kept Harden, extended him, and the big contract he gave to Embiid. He's going to pay his players.
Right.
Well, okay. So I listened in my one foray into Twitter on like Saturday. I was bored and I looked and I stumbled on one of those Twitter like chat room things. I didn't know they did this. It's the first time I checked it out. And so I sat and listened to these folks talk for a while about this. And I don't even know who they were. It doesn't matter. But they were very interested in Jeff Bezos because Jeff Bezos has a lot of money, in thinking that is some sort of benefit to the team. What Jeff Bezos would bring is attention, which may not be a good thing, but it'll bring attention. The owners want Jeff Bezos because Jeff Bezos could pay a lot more for the team, and thereby boost the value of the other teams.
Right.
That's why they want Bezos. The fact that Jeff Bezos has all the money has nothing to do with, as Dave said, his ability to actually put a team on the field. It has zero to do with that. Josh Harris is just as capitalized as is Bezos for that regard. So it's not really what you want isn't so much the dude with the most billions. It's the dude with enough billions who will establish a professional winning organization.
Right. I think the only advantage of Jeff Bezos ever gives you compared to Harris, maybe, and this is a maybe, is when it does come time to build a new stadium, to build a new practice facility, he can go top of the line and not even question it.
Oh, I mean, you can get that done. Other people can get that done too. I mean,
I understand Bezos, that. I'm just saying with him, it's not there's no obstacle for that.
Well, I mean, it
other than
brings
him
that.
being cheap.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think Josh Harris couldn't get it done also. And again, you're
No,
not
no, I'm not
shelling
saying
out.
that he couldn't.
People don't understand this. They're not just writing a check for construction.
I
Nobody
know.
ever does that. I mean, there's construction loans and all, and then permanent loans and all kinds of stuff that goes
Right.
into major. I mean, I do it every day. This is what I do, and nobody pays cash for this stuff.
No,
So
but Steve, if it's like, well, we could have 20 massage tables or 15 massage tables, Jeff Bezos will say, make it 30.
I don't know
That's
if
what
Jeff
people think
Bezos
is
will
going to
say
happen.
that in any way. Jeff
I'm
Bezos could say
That's
that.
what people think.
Yeah, it's dumb though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not how it works. Now, could Bezos have more political clout to get like a new stadium built
I-
in inside Washington D.C.? Maybe, I guess, but I don't know how connected Josh Harris is.
Well, so it's not necessarily. I think the bigger thing was when Rails came into play with the Harris Group. Rails is politically connected because he's been a DC guy forever. He knows all these people very well. So I think he's the guy for that more than any. Because here's my thing: you might think Jeff Bezos, oh, he's the richest man, he can get what he wants. He's not well liked by certain people on the Republican side. He's not well liked by a lot of people on the Democratic side.
Mm-hmm.
Making a deal with Jeff Bezos, a big public deal like that, ain't gonna go over well with
Not with
either
some people,
party's
no.
rank and file very much. For very different reasons on both sides.
Well, the AOCs of the world don't like him, like the
Right.
twits like her, and then the Republican Party doesn't view him because he's not a conservative, and so they're not down with a lot of the things he does and says.
Right.
So yeah, he's not well liked by everybody. That's true.
Right. Yes. Republicans think he's a Democrat. Democrats think he's an uber capitalist, so he's not well liked by either party.
Right.
Now, Josh Harris probably none of these guys are not uber capitalists. You don't make $1 billion without that. So, I don't
Harris
think
is more of a run-of-the-mill billionaire, if there's a
Right.
such thing.
Right. And so I think the thing with Rails coming in, though, Rails is very well known in DC for giving to the arts and for doing all those kind of hobnobby things that really get things done when it comes to stadium deals. Like running those circles.
I think almost anybody not named Dan Snyder would have success one way or the other. At least much more success than Danny did at trying to build a stadium. They just flat out said we're not working with Dan Snyder.
Yes.
And a new owner is going to have is not going to have that.
Well, and that's and that's the one thing that kills me, what you just saying about Dan Snyder, about him not having any success at all. It's like you want to ridicule someone like Josh Harris, who's had the Sixers in a championship position the last 3 years. They've been in the playoffs for the last 5 years. The Devils are up and coming. You want to complain about that, what you want to call little success compared to absolutely nothing. There isn't a billionaire owner out there that has a history of success running a pro franchise team. Not one. Right. Josh Harris
Robert
comes
Kraft.
the closest. Well, no, I'm talking about looking to buy the team.
Oh, looking to buy.
I'm saying looking to buy the team.
No.
There isn't an owner outside that door saying, "Hey, listen, I won all these championships out here." Doesn't exist. Josh Harris comes the closest. And he knows how to put together a front office, like you had said, build that culture, put the people in place that's going to run that culture where it needs to be, basically run your business model the way it needs to go, and you put someone in charge to run it, and you evaluate that guy. That guy, he has to put everything else in place. If nothing else works, you go to your president of football operations, say, why isn't this working? Get this to work.
Because I've got a news flash for people. These owners are not in the building very much, okay?
Yeah.
Dan Snyder might have been because he had nothing else to do.
Right.
He had no business that wasn't failing, so he shows up. But the owner I worked for was never there. I saw him once, and that was it. He was never there because he was always running other businesses. He was never in town. Right. They just don't. He's not a CEO. He's the owner. That's why they have GMs and president of business operations to be there. Those guys were there every day.
Right.
The owners aren't there very much.
Dan's always there, but even if Harris had nothing to do, he still has 2 other sports teams.
Well, Danny actually said in the his deposition in front of Congress that he wasn't there very much.
Right, which no one really bought at the time.
I didn't really believe him, but he did say that just for the record.
Well, now he's moved to London, so I believe
moved to
that
boat in the middle of the Mediterranean, actually.
Right.
But
well, So one of the many things is people noticed his private jet flew back and forth to London like 5 times, moving his
Is
stuff.
this the Dan Snyder Yacht Tracker account?
Yep.
Okay.
They're tracking his jet, and they noticed that. And a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't he hire a company? And if you've ever moved, you don't hire a company and move your valuables with the private company. Like all your like jewelry and stuff, you gotta take that yourself. So 5-6 jet flights for
Dave
Dan
and I,
Snyder
being
makes
military
sense.
people, we have moved a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, you take the valuable. I'm not going to trust people to move my Les Paul. That
Right.
will come with me.
Right. But Dan Snyder has things more valuable than that, I'm sure.
He does. He does.
Yes.
Yeah.
All his
doubt.
vintage pornography.
We don't know
in fact,
that for the record.
in fact, Steve, you mentioned about making sure no one touches your guitar. Well, it's funny because when I went over to Aviano Air Base, Italy, we received all our stuff and everything, whatever, everything was fine. But we had another family came in. They lost an entire crate in the ocean, gone.
Oh,
I mean, it was a bunch of their high-end furniture they had and everything, which is absolutely gone. And it was stuff they had gotten from their family, and they were like, it was like really good furniture. Just
Dave,
gone.
was it in the ocean or in the ocean?
I told somebody the other day, like next time I move, nobody's going to be able to be in the car with me because my whole car is going to be filled with guitars and guns.
Yeah.
It's going to be the whole car is going to be filled up with a bunch of guitars and guitar amps and a bunch of guns because nobody can move any of that.
Well, if you drive through New Jersey, make sure the clip is in the trunk and the actual safety is on and on the floor and away from you, out of reach.
I have a license, but I don't think they'd honor my license in
No, they probably
New
wouldn't.
Jersey.
No.
Yeah.
They don't honor anybody's license over here in New Jersey.
No.
Unless you're a mobster, they'll let you go then. But
well, yeah.
I mean, there are guys you can get to do it through those states. My grandfather used to be that kind, like have that as part of his job when he owned a pawn shop, like transporting guns. That was a thing.
I'm talking about legally transport, just for the
I'm
record.
talking about legally too. He owned a pawn shop. That was literally part of the job. Was I bought this gun? I need to move it.
What do I do?
Yeah. So what else did we have to talk about today?
Well, we can run through the tight end list because we're going to publish this.
All right. Let's run through the tight ends and.
I was supposed to do this last week and I ran out of time and couldn't get it done, and so we're going to have 2 draft previews. Dave, even though Dave doesn't know it, is about to go over the running back draft group. Let me run through tight ends here first. Okay, the tight end group. First of all, I think Washington probably needs tight end. Logan Thomas is old and beat up and didn't play much and kind of fell off from his first year with the team. So it wouldn't surprise me if they drafted a tight end. There are a number of them who are first-round quality tight ends. This is supposed to be an historically great tight end class. So we'll start with Michael Mayer, 6'4", 249 at Notre Dame, true junior, 36 games, 180 receptions, 18 touchdowns, consensus All-American in 2022. Ran the 40 in 4.7 seconds, which is pretty good for being a 6'4", 250-pound dude. Known for being a player who is Mr. Contested Catch. He's going to be the guy who pulls down contested catches. He's a mismatch. He's, in my view, not the unanimous, but the consensus number 1 tight end on the board would be him. Luke Musgrave, 6'6", 250 from Oregon State. My number 2, ran the 40 in 4.6 seconds, which is moving for a guy that big. Not quite as much success in the passing. He had 47 receptions, 633 yards, 2 touchdowns. Prototypical size, not explosive. A prototypical blocker. Hasn't played much, in 4 years. He lost the season to an injury. First round talent. Dalton Kincaid, 6'4", 246 from Utah, 5th-year senior, played a lot. 173 receptions, 2,600 yards. He's got a back injury, so he didn't do the combine drills and stuff. But his strengths known to be athleticism, route running, and hands. So that is Kincaid. Darrell Washington, he's a round 1, round 2 guy. Darrell Washington, 6'7", 264 from Georgia. A lot of people probably know him just because it's Georgia. Another true junior, 2nd team All-ACC. Ran the 40 in 4.6, 4.64. Perfect inline tight end, but he was actually pretty versatile at Georgia. So a lot of people think he can be either inline or a Y. First round talent. Tucker Kraft, South Dakota.
Well, real quick, that
Yeah, go
guy,
ahead.
Darnell Washington, that's the one guy that I like a lot, who kind of gives me a little bit of Jordan Reed vibes, a little bit. Big body, great hands, very good route runner. I do like him a lot, and I could see him being a target for this team.
That's interesting. Yeah, he'd be a little taller than Reed, but if you could get that size and beat Jordan Reed, that'd be unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is you're like what 6 deep and you're still calling these guys first round talents.
Yeah, and this is not me. This is for this one. I sort of summarized what a bunch of analysts looked at, and they all had him. I mean, all these guys first round.
Yeah.
Those are the four that are kind of the first rounders.
Okay, we're for it. Okay.
Mayer, Musgrave, Kincaid, and Washington. Now it kind of falls off a little bit. You're down to Tucker Kraft, 6'5", 254, South Dakota State. Another, big dude, 4'6", 40, 34-inch vertical leap. Decent athleticism, not quite a great route runner. Looked at as second or third round prospect. Still a great prospect, not quite at the other level. And I'm just going to go faster through the rest of these names here. Sam LaPortia from Iowa, day 2 guy, 6'3", 245. He's a sub 4'6", 40 guy, so he's probably your Y realistically. There's your Y tight end. Brendan Strange from Penn State. Dave, tell us about Brenton Strange. I know you know about him.
He's actually probably a little slow in a slower mold of Mike Gesicki. Really good hands. I mean, he's a good tracker of the ball, especially in traffic, and he's got a real strong frame, so he could take a hit across the middle very, very well. He was a very athletic. He didn't always look athletic on the field, but he always found a way of finding that zone, sitting in the zone. Very good hands. He's a nice tight end. I like him.
There you go. So there's Brenton Strange, 6'4", 250 from Dave's favorite team, Penn State. Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan, 6'5", 250. A fifth-year senior, played a lot, 43 games. He's another guy, 4'6", 40. I've seen him graded anywhere from a third round to a fifth round grade. A lot of people think he's got limited ability after the ball. Like, this is his problem. Not a great not a great yak guy. He's just a big dude. He's not going to be that athletic. They're going to get him. So that's that. Davis Allen from Clemson, 6'6", 245, fifth round talent. And then Josh Wiley, 6'6", 248 from Cincinnati, fourth or fifth round talent. That's where I stopped. So that is tight ends.
So very deep class.
Yes.
Is it safe to say that none of us would be upset if they took a tight end in the first round?
I would consider tight end as being a big need. So yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people want them to go tackle. I get it, or at least interior or line at some point.
I would prefer line, but it wouldn't break my heart. I think tight end would be smart. I don't think corner would be smart. I think that's dumb.
I mean, and also tight ends do help with the running game. That's part of the job. I know it's not popular anymore, but that is the game.
Yeah, and if you guys didn't notice, all of these guys are huge.
Yeah.
They're not like your like your Chris Cooley size. These guys are all like 6'4" and up, and most of them are 6'5", 6'6". So there's some blocking potential there.
Yeah. And
I mean, this is actually
250s. Yeah.
For the depth of tight end class, this is actually the year where, Iran got a phone call to move back in the mid-20s, late 20s. In the first round, and even potentially pick up a future first because of it or whatever. This is the draft to do that, because any one of those 4 tight ends will be there. I'm willing to bet Washington will be there at the back end of the first, early second, and they could pick up more assets going forward. It's just, I mean, because the tackle class isn't super deep after you get past the first 2 or 3. There's a really big drop off after that. So, and I don't think any one of them are going to be available except for the one kid, Broderick, I think his name is, out of Georgia.
Yeah.
He might be there at 16, but that's about it.
I kind of thought Paris Johnson maybe would be.
He apparently had a very good pro day or whatever it was.
Okay, well, maybe he wouldn't be then.
Yeah. Our old buddy Robbie Duncan was posting highlights and like
Okay.
drooling. So, if Robbie sees it, those guys see it.
Robbie's got a good eye. If you guys
He
don't
always
notice.
has, man. Always
I don't know
has.
if he's still active on Twitter or what. I mean, I don't pay attention anymore.
A little bit. Not like I think he just had another kid, so he's probably busy.
Robbie's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Not like he didn't have all that when he's not us who just have this.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's tight ends.
I look at those tight ends, I'd be happy with almost any of them. We desperate. Logan Thomas was a nice little piece. He's a nice little story, but wrong age, wrong injuries. Like you got to be ready to move on. And I know they say they like the young guys they have behind them, but they're all, works in progress at best.
Yeah, all of them are. That's true.
Yeah.
They all.
I mean, Turner's got the biggest probably ceiling of the group, but
didn't really see much from him last year.
Right?
No, not too much. No.
I
think he spent like the first half of the year with a hamstring or something like that or whatever. But
and the guy who got injured, Rogers or whatever,
Armani Rogers.
Thank you. Yeah. But another project because he's another former quarterback or whatever.
They had a lot of injuries in the tight end group.
They really did. All right, Dave, do you want to talk some running backs?
Oh, sure.
We're
in this
going
class,
old school, tight ends and running backs. I feel like it's the 80s again.
Well, I mean, in this class you have, I guess it's Bijan. You say it right? Bijan Robinson, Bijan, whatever.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Well, he's obviously a top grader running back in this class. He pretty much does everything. Catch the ball, 4.46 speed, real good in tight spaces, and can take it to the outside. It's great hands, everything, but I don't see that being a pick at 16. I don't see any running back being a pick at 16. But if you're going to make a selection that early, Robinson's the guy you make. I mean, he's a guy you can build your offense around. He'll be your cornerstone for the next 5-6 years. So you get down to what I labeled as tier 2. You have Tejas Spears out of Tulane, 5'10", 201, runs a 4.47. Has a broad jump of 10 feet 5. You have Jamar Gibbs out of Alabama, 5'9", 199, 4.36. Didn't have a broad jump to go on there. Dendrick Prince, out of Tulsa, 6 foot, 216, ran a 4.41 40. Now out of that, you're looking at Spears and Gibbs are probably guys are early second. They're talking Gibbs could possibly be a late first round selection.
I've seen him go way higher than I thought he would.
Yeah. And now, I mean, he's probably the fastest running back in this draft, the most elusive. He's got somewhat of a smallish frame, but you put him in open space with the ball on screens or wheel routes or whatever. I mean, he's gone. Simple as that. So, I mean, he's definitely a guy that would fit Eric Bieniemy's scheme, without a doubt. But the guy who probably intrigues me the most in this class would be, I think it was Dendrick Pierce, right? Yeah, Dendrick Pierce. He has pretty much everything you want in terms of size, speed, athleticism, everything. He's a real elusive runner, real good with his hands. But his only problem that he has is he's just highly inconsistent, very, very raw in his talents. They project him more of either like a late round or even an undrafted free agent type of running back. But this is a guy, if you can get him focused and get him to be, and you can actually develop, think of Isaiah Pacheco. Because when I was reading on him, Pacheco is the one that kind of stood out the most because he was out of Rutgers. He was a 7th round pick for Kansas City, came out of nowhere. And next thing you know, he's one of the reasons why Kansas City went to the Super Bowl. So, but he's probably the most interesting. That's why I put, even though he's a late round flyer, I put him in that tier 2 class only because of sheer potential where his ceiling's at. And he may never get close to it, but it was intriguing to me. So,
well, hey, you were saying, I was looking at some 40 times. Technically, the guy you mentioned is only the second fastest. The kid from Texas A&M, Devon Akane, had a faster 40 by by a 0.05 seconds. So, that matters. Yeah, 0.05 seconds.
In fact, if I do have him down here, but his only problem though, he's a 5'8" frame, 188-pound guy.
Yeah.
So he's obviously not going to be that.
He's not a power runner, folks.
Not a power runner. He's not going to do anything in between tackles. He reminds me a lot like a Bart Scott from Philadelphia. He's a guy you can hide, like in goal line situation, you can hide him behind behind the big offensive lineman, see him squirt out every now and then for a touchdown or whatever, So,
yes.
Now I have a section that I labeled as the grinders. These guys are real good, big bruising backs. Ain't going to help you much in the passing game. May not be a true liability, but these are guys that, in jumbo packs in the goal line or short yardage carries or give Brian Robinson any kind of a breather. Or guys, a couple guys I'll mention is like Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, 6 foot 214, runs a 4.5 340. But he has a very, very good low center of gravity. Pad levels can get a little bit high on him. You kind of almost like a poor man version of a Derrick Henry. Doesn't have the speed that Henry had, but Kendra Miller out of TCU. Yeah, he's a guy that I'm sorry, I gotta go. Let me go down to Sean Tucker. I'm sorry. He's a guy that I want to talk to next. He's a guy, he's 5'9", 207. But he runs with a real low pad level, sheer power through his legs. He's a guy that's not going to bounce the ball to the outside, but he's a true in between tackle runner. He's a guy you could probably get in a late round and develop into a potential starter for Brian Robinson down the road. So he's a guy that I kind of liked in this group. And Tank Bigsby from Auburn is another guy. He's a little bit taller, but he has excuse me. He has he's very decisive in his runs in between the tackles, and he's a very, very certain finisher. And what I mean by that is, from what I was reading, is the fact that once that first impact comes, that pad level's coming down, he's driving through the run, and he uses his legs and all the power that he has and drives right through. So, but. And then
is it so difficult to believe that Washington is going to draft one of these guys? I mean, I think they will. And it wouldn't surprise me too much if they spent a high pick on one, because really, if you think about it, Antonio Gibson, sorry to say, is not anything special. I don't think. And Brian Robinson, great story and all that, certainly had a couple great games, but his stats weren't all that great. And not that he won't get there, but on top of that, Washington let J.D. McKissick go too, and so they're in a position where they have. I think the fan base probably overrates the running game, the Washington running game a little bit, and it would not surprise me if one of these guys, maybe not a first round pick, but one of these guys you're talking about here isn't drafted in Washington.
I think they need to draft somebody.
Yeah, I do too.
If they draft anybody early, I would only imagine it'd be either Gibbs or Spears out of Tulane. Because they both fit the mold of what Bieniemy would want to run in that offense. So,
what are you envisioning he wants to run out of curiosity? Because I think that is an interesting kind of discussion. Is like, obviously we have Gibson, who's kind of in the one cut back mold, right? And then we have Brian Robinson, who's the power back prototype. So I'm kind of curious to see what they want to do at running back here. We talked about ad nauseum, I think, when they hired Bieniemy, that, you look at what Andy Reid has always done with running backs. He looks for scat back guys who he can throw the ball to. That was kind of always his thing. But I'm curious to see what Bieniemy wants to do.
Well, if you go back and look at what Reid has done, and even what because in the early years in Philadelphia, he ran a lot of West Coast, obviously, and everything was all about, It wasn't so much a zone run; it was more of a gap run scheme, is what they call it, right?
Right.
So, but he's kind of morphed that. He's kind of taken on a little more of the Kyle Shanahan, a little bit, not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
More of the come up one cut, hit the hole type of run with his own schemes that they have and everything. He's incorporated that into what he ran with the West Coast, or the version of West Coast that he runs. No one ever runs a true version of West Coast anymore.
No.
But it's kind of morphed into a pretty interesting offense. And since they've had Mahomes, they run a lot more of the RPO, and I think the RPO has really dominated more of what their running game has kind of become into. So using all of that, I would see Bieniemy wanting to definitely with Hal, if Hal's going to be the number one guy, Sam Howell running the RPO, and as that's going to open up the running lanes, obviously, he's going to use some of that West Coast scheme. And you're going to see a lot of screen passes. That's the one thing Reed has always done, screen passes. He lived and died off the screen pass. He typically always won on that. But so that's what I kind of see, kind of what this offense is going to be like, probably potentially.
All of this is to say that expect one of these guys Dave just went over to be in Washington, I think.
Yeah. I think we all agree that with them getting rid of McKissick, they need a third guy, regardless.
Absolutely. They may need a second guy.
Right.
That's why I won't be surprised. That's why I won't be surprised if you see Jamar Gibbs in the second round. I think he fits that beautifully.
And if he's still there, that's a good value.
Yeah. And Denrick Prince, just keep that name in mind, because if it goes late in the rounds, I would not be surprised if Bieniemy goes, I want that guy.
Washington needs a lot of things.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. They definitely need a lot of things. We were discussing that also on social media, Dave. Maybe, I don't know if you were on that thread, Dave, or not, but someone's like, well, I want them to get Gibbs because look at how well he, runs through, defenses. And I'm like, it's Alabama. He's running through holes that are huge.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think that should wrap us up on running backs. One last tidbit to throw out there. We can't talk about much because we're up on it. A story did come out this week that the team and NBC Sports Washington no longer have a contract. Now, NBC Sports Washington, for those who don't know or aren't local like you guys, that's part of the whole Comcast regional sports thing. They had a contract with the team for decades where they showed all the teams like primary video production stuff, all the pregame, all the postgame. That's where you went to watch preseason games if you were local. And that contract is now gone. NBC Sports Washington was bought out by Ted Leonsis, and the owner of the hockey team, the basketball team. And they said it's not worth it to keep their deal with the Commanders. Because you guys know the price point on those things are pretty steep for the broadcast company. So that's wild. I guess we don't know. I'm sure they'll show it on local TV anyway, but like the preseason games. But I guess we don't know where the preseason or pregame, postgame stuff will happen.
That'll work out one way or the other.
I'm sure it will, but it's still wild that change happened.
Rest in peace, NBC Sports Washington.
Yeah. Yep. They're still going to be around. They're just going to focus on hockey and basketball instead.
And nobody will watch it.
Yeah. Well, people like the hockey team here. That's about it.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Well, we might have the greatest hockey player in history, so I don't know.
Wayne Gretzky is not on the Washington Capitals.
Well, no. Ovechkin's is going for his record, though. That's the point.
Wayne Gretzky is not on the Washington Capitals.
Wayne Gretzky played in an era when goalies sucked.
Wayne Gretzky is not on the Washington Capitals.
I guess this could go on. And where's Bobby Orr, by the way? He's not on the
Wayne
Capitals
Gretzky is not on the Washington Capitals.
All right, that should wrap up.
Man of many words.
Yes. That should wrap this one up. Did we miss anything? I'm looking at my sheet. I don't think we did. We wanted to talk stadium stuff, but that was more filler. So
yeah, we kind of ran out of time. We'll do that another day. It wasn't any great news.
No. All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week. Later.
Bye.
See it.
All right, kid.